When was it that we were here? Was it like November?
And it was cold.
It was cold. This is going to be a little bit nicer this time.
We're back in Vigo County, Indiana, where last year we helped solve Erica Case's murder and put her killer, Clint Mackey, behind bars.
I walked right over and I killed her. And I killed her.
This week, we're hoping we can once again uncover the truth. Yo, this case is 39 years old.
That is the oldest case we have ever done.
It happened April the 2nd, 1975, to a 23-year-old girl. Our victim in this case, Kathy Taylor, was discovered dead by her husband, Earl. Apparently, he found her electrocuted in the bathtub after a radio had accidentally fallen into the water. While many people back then thought that Earl's actions were suspicious, the DA back then didn't think there was enough evidence to move forward, and the case went cold.
This case is a little unusual. Death by electrocution with a small little AM/FM clock radio.
Earl also told several people that Kathy had terminal cancer, which could make suicide a possibility also.
Kathy Taylor's family have always believed that he murdered Kathy, and no matter how long it takes, they're just as ready as they were on day 2 to see him get justice.
It's been 39 years. There's no physical evidence left to be tested and no DNA to find. But that's never stopped us before.
We just have a little...
We feel like we're back home. So happy to see these two great guys. So happy to see you.
We were thrilled the first time the team was able to come here. Everybody adds a piece to the puzzle. Hopefully we'll be able to make lightning strike twice.
You ready to show us our room?
Let's go. Same place, same time.
Do it.
It's kind of fun to walk in on the first day and everybody knows how it works.
How are you? Nice to see you again.
How are you?
Good.
Glad you're back.
Yeah.
Coming with us this week to work on this case is Steve Spingola from Wisconsin. Ready to go to work?
You got it.
Steve is excited because he already knows John and Derek. They bonded when they were working together to catch Clint Mackey. What a great team.
This case is a 1975 case.
How old were you in 1975? Were you born?
I wasn't born in 1975.
I knew that was coming.
That's how old this case is.
Yeah.
Well, y'all want to start with the beginning of the story on this case?
Sure. Earl Taylor and Kathy had been married for a little under 2 years. On April 2nd, Earl Taylor comes home. Lower legs is a radio, still plugged into the wall. Earl claims to then unplug the radio, take it out, drains the water, lifts her out of the tub, lays her on the floor, and covers her with a blanket. At that time, he calls his father. His father then drives to City Hall, where he asks the secretary of the mayor to call law enforcement, which she does.
And John, back then, there was no 911, okay? But the way he still reported it by going to his dad first, that's weird.
Right?
But y'all want to start putting what we have and what we do know on the board?
As well.
Sure.
Okay. Earl Taylor.
They've agreed already, apparently, to separate and divorce. In fact, Kathy goes to see a lawyer and make this final.
According to Kathy's family and friends, she was looking to divorce Earl because he was messing around with a lot of other women, including a lady named Sue.
The letter here to Earl from Sue, she's talking about how she wants to marry him, and this letter was dated November 13th, 1973. Earl and Kathy had just been married in late October of 1973.
Hey, y'all want to talk about insurance now?
Oh, yeah. The big motivator.
Earl had several small life insurance policies on Kathy, but Earl was an insurance salesman. And every insurance salesman we've ever met says you can't have too much. He might stand to gain right under $100,000.
I thought that some of them were double if it was an accident.
Accidental
That's
death.
the way it added up to more money.
Conservatively, then, let's
Right.
say conservatively, right under $100,000, he's thinking he might benefit by getting rid of her.
Right.
Then why did he go around telling people she had cancer?
It's a good question.
Before she died, Earl told some people that Kathy had terminal cancer, leading them to infer that she might have committed suicide because of the disease.
Truly, if he wanted to get double the money, so therefore it had to be an accident, then being terminally ill is not the way to do that anyway. So I don't even understand.
If it's ruled a suicide, the insurance won't pay off. If it's an accident, it's double
money.
double indemnity.
Do we have anybody who can talk about
At this
cancer?
point, no.
So no nurse, no doctor. What about medical records?
No.
Wow.
No one else knew of Kathy having cancer, and it's a bizarre thing for Earl to lie about, especially because if Kathy killed herself, he wouldn't get any of her insurance money. But we'll have to consider the suicide theory as we examine this case.
Okay. How old is Earl now?
He is 62 years old. He was released from prison this year. He had served a 60-year sentence for murder of a second wife by the name of Mindy.
This is the first case we've had where our prime suspect is the convicted killer. 12 years after Kathy's death, Earl was convicted of murdering his second wife, Mindy, for a life insurance payout and staging her death to look like an accident. And he just got out of prison. How much did he do on a 60-year sentence?
27 years.
But a prior conviction alone is never enough to prove guilt in another case. If Earl killed Kathy, we're going to need a lot more evidence. Well, I think we covered all of the main points. The goal now is to make sure all witnesses can truly remember and testify to all these little things, though. Hopefully they're all still around.
Some are, some aren't.
Ooh. There weren't a whole lot of witnesses even back then. I would say anywhere from 25 to 30. I'm anticipating there will be about 5 that are deceased, which would leave us with about 20 to 25. If they're all around, we should still be okay.
The first on the list would be Sheriff Ted Melvin.
He's
who has
not.
passed. Sergeant Brazier has passed.
Okay.
Dr. Jack Weinbaum
It's past too.
has
Yeah,
passed.
deceased.
Herman Munch has passed.
Who else?
Sue Orr, Harold Pons, Robert Wilson, Lila Winters, Mary Estes, and then I believe the suspect's father, Russell Taylor, has passed.
That's a lot more people than I thought. It's like dominoes. We're finding out that one after another, a lot of our witnesses have passed away. God dog it. This is the first time that I'm honestly worried that we might be too late. Well, that hurts.
So we're gonna go see Kathy's mom and her sister.
Yeah, her dad's passed away.
So her mom's gotta probably be up there in age too now, huh? Today we're going to meet Kathy's mom and her sister.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
John Motes, I talked to you on the phone.
Yes, I saw you on television.
After 39 years, I'm sure they realize this will probably be the last time this case will ever be worked on.
When all this happened, Kathy was only 23 years old.
Kathy was a person that loved people, and she loved working at the nursing home. And when she died, these people called, these old people called, and wondered why God didn't take them instead of her, because she was so good to them. Kathy was a kind person, and her sister got along so well. They played softball together. My girls never did like dolls.
She was good at all kinds of sports. We would go bowling, and I always lost.
But this was a terrible thing. Terrible thing.
Her doctor is no longer alive, and we can't get the medical records to show that Kathy was a perfectly healthy 23-year-old girl.
She was fine.
Did she have any kind of cancer?
Oh, no.
Nothing at all.
No.
Kathy's family didn't know anything about this alleged cancer diagnosis, so was she keeping it a secret or was Earl lying? And if he was, why? They find Kathy on April the 2nd. The weekend before then, do you remember if she had come home to visit y'all?
Yes, that was Easter. So she was home Saturday and Sunday, and she left Sunday afternoon to go back to Terre Haute with reservations from us.
Reservations, why?
We want her to wait. I think we knew that there would be trouble.
That she was done with the marriage.
She was done with the marriage.
Even though he got 60 years for Mindy's murder, it doesn't do anything for you, does it?
Oh, I'm sorry, but it didn't.
Because why?
Because he should have been in prison before that, and then that wouldn't have happened.
Mindy would still be alive.
Maxine and Bonnie are angry and they're hurt, but they have no doubt that Earl is responsible for Kathy's death. Our goal here, though, is to find the truth, whatever that might be. We're in Vigo County, Indiana, where in 1975, Kathy Taylor was found dead by her husband, Earl. Apparently electrocuted after her radio had fallen into a bathtub.
Head west on Cherry Street.
So we're trying to figure out whether or not that was an accident, a suicide, or is this a murder? Earl just finished serving 27 years in prison for killing his second wife, Mindy, and staging her murder to look like she accidentally drove herself into a lake. If we're going to figure out if Earl killed Kathy, uncovering patterns in his behavior could be the key.
Hello.
So we're going to talk to Mindy's sister.
Did Mindy know about Earl's first wife when they were together?
He had her convinced that he was being harassed, by the authorities, and had Mindy totally convinced that he had nothing to do with it. And so therefore we were totally convinced he had nothing to do with it. He even took her to the graveside.
Did you ever have a conversation with Earl about his first wife's death?
No, we don't really know, other than that she was very similar to Mindy, just a very loving and kind person, and the same scenario with the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big in common feature.
Yes, yes. Before they were married, he said he was going to be a millionaire by the time he was 30.
Before all this happened to Mindy, did she ever tell y'all how their marriage was really doing?
She didn't me, but she did my mom.
Okay.
There were times that we saw bruises on Mindy, and then it was probably, I don't know how long before Mindy's death, my mom begged her to leave him and come and live with her. And she didn't want to because of the kids. But he most definitely is a sociopath. He has a way of manipulating a person. He has a way of getting your sympathy. And Mindy was a very loving, caring individual. She loved Earl, and I don't think she saw. She just overlooked all of the signs.
We need to find out whether or not Earl displayed any suspicious signs around the time of Kathy's death.
Everyone, this is former Detective Tom Roberts. I think at one point you were even chief deputy here.
Nice to meet you. Tom Roberts was at Kathy's scene that day, so he'll have firsthand knowledge of Earl's behavior.
I remember arriving at the residence. We walked in. Earl was there.
Was he remorseful at all?
No.
Nothing, eh?
And he's so young, you would think he would have been flipping out like any normal 22-year-old would have been.
You would think. We didn't get to question Earl too much at that time. But Earl had stated that Kathy had got a call from a neighbor the night before wanting to speak to Kathy. And he advised her that Kathy was in the bathtub and could not answer the phone.
Earl told you that?
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Officer Roberts heard out of Earl's own mouth that Kathy was taking a bath the night before she died. So who takes a bath at night and again the next morning? It doesn't make sense, and it kind of suggests that Earl wasn't being completely honest with the police. Oh, I think I want to kiss you.
Don't hold back.
Don't hold back. Officer Barnhart also worked the scene at Kathy's house that afternoon and was one of the first to talk to Earl after Kathy's death.
I was talking to Earl to find out where he was that day. He told me that Kathy was still in bed when he left and said he got back home at approximately 4:30.
He tells you he leaves home, he stops at the Union 76 gas station on North 3rd.
Right.
And then at Summers Buick at 7:50 a.m.
Right.
So he told you 7:50 a.m.
Right. Every place that he went, he gave me a time. Kind of struck me a little bit odd at the time that he remembered the exact times that he was there.
It is weird.
I don't know.
I mean, most people round off. Like, how about around
That's
10-ish?
the locations and the times that he gave.
Earl went to 14 different places and recalled how long he was there to the minute. Either Earl is a robot or he was overly prepared to explain his whereabouts.
You gotta love small towns, man. Kathy and Earl's neighbor still lives in the same house she lived in 40 years ago. Let's hope that she can remember that day so she can help us understand what happened.
I don't know, I always talk to all the neighbors. I go over and introduce myself and talk to them. And I knew Kathy more than I knew him, but I could see their comings and goings. Of course, I see everybody's coming.
Sure,
because
absolutely.
You never know what's going on.
Exactly. Do you remember much about that day?
I remember he came home with the dog.
He's claimed to have been gone from 7 to 4:30.
No, he was not, because he came home.
You said back then around 10 a.m.
That could be right.
And you saw him drive in?
I saw him drive in and get out of the car with the dog, which I thought was a little weird.
Why was it weird?
Because I just never seen him leave with the dog.
Okay.
Kathy Smith saw Earl at his house during a time Earl claimed he wasn't at home. How could he meticulously mention 14 different places he went that day down to the minute and not remember to mention that he was at his own house at that particular time? Usually if she was home, the drapes were open.
Most of the time, yes.
And on the day that she ends up being found,
they were closed.
The whole day. Okay.
I found it kind of odd that he didn't call the cops right away or come to somebody's house and say, my wife is dead. That kind of creeped me out. I just kind of wanted to keep my family away from him. And
well, he is out. Matter of fact,
is he around this area?
He's right here in Terre Haute.
Oh, is he?
He's working.
I just think that was one of those cases that somebody just got away with murder. I really do.
When we worked on the case in Vigo County, Indiana, at that time, it was the very oldest cold case that anyone had ever worked on in the entire state. This case is 39 years old.
That is the oldest case we have ever done.
It happened April the 2nd, 1975. How old were you in 1975? Were you born?
I wasn't born in 1975.
I knew that was coming.
That's how old this case is.
Yeah.
The witnesses were still around and agreeable and cooperative and remembered a lot of wonderful new things in that case. Earl told you that.
Yes.
Beautiful. You're going to get to see the nitty-gritty of what really happens when we do this job, and you're going to learn. We're investigating the 1975 death of Kathy Taylor and trying to determine if it was a mere accident like her husband claimed, a suicide, or if it was a murder.
This is Kelly Ziegler. She's working with me on this.
Sue dated Earl just before he married Kathy, and then after he tried to stay in touch with her. She was just 19 at the time, but we're hoping that she can maybe give us some insight into what Earl was like way back then.
So when you started dating him in high school, is that right?
Senior year.
You guys dated for 6 or 7 months, is that right?
Roughly.
When did that relationship end?
In the fall of '73, because there was a homecoming game at Terre Haute South, and then we were going to go down to the game. He pulls up behind me, and I said, well, shut the car off and come on in. And he stood there, and he says, I can't. I'm on my way to my wedding rehearsal. Turned around, got in his car. He goes, by the way, I'm sorry.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not. That's when Kathy found out about me, and I found out about her. She had no clue we had been dating. And then I wrote her a letter.
Well, we have it.
Okay, good.
Read that out loud.
Okay. He's been seeing me since the Monday after you were married. He asked me to marry him 1 week before his wedding. He told me that he told you he didn't love you, but he still loved me. He said before anything happened to you, he'd take
out more insurance.
Yeah. So we could live quite well. Yep.
Sue's letter and testimony is evidence that Earl himself made a direct connection between receiving life insurance and separating from Kathy. So that is another piece of the puzzle that shows us Earl's motive. Why'd that affect you so much?
He killed her. I'm not stupid. I'm sorry. If only I had done something then.
You did.
Didn't do enough.
Make it up all right?
Earl used to sell insurance for a man named James Cora. Maybe he can tell us more about Earl's interest in insurance professionally and personally.
People seemed to really like him.
Right.
But for some reason or other, I just didn't trust him. One of my secretaries came to me one day. She laid down about 5 envelopes using our office address in the name of Kathy Taylor. And what they were life insurance policies that Earl had purchased on her life through mail order life insurance companies. And probably a couple days later, Kathy came in, and we met in my office.
Obviously, she didn't know about them, didn't sign them. Wasn't her signature?
Correct.
Okay, that they'd been forged?
Yeah.
James tells us that not only did Earl order multiple life insurance policies on Kathy, but he had forged her signatures and had them delivered to his work to avoid Kathy seeing them. This is big.
And I'll never forget these words that she used. She said, I think he's planning on bumping me off.
Earl's a cold person.
His whole life is a scam.
Yeah, it is.
Thinks he can get away with anything, and
He was young.
Learning.
Yeah, he was young. He was
Just learning his trade.
We poked all kinds of holes in Earl's alibi and uncovered his scam having to do with insurance policies. Both of those are great pieces of circumstantial evidence. But to prove a case against him, we need to see if the way Kathy died suggests murder.
Dr. Kaur is forensic pathologist here at Regional Hospital.
Since the original medical examiner has passed away, Captain Motes has arranged for Dr. Kaur to help us understand how Kathy died.
What would you say is your medical opinion that, as far as what you would expect to find if she would have been electrocuted?
Electrocution generally stops the heart. That's how it causes death.
Yeah.
Breathing should stop pretty much instantly, so you should have basically normal occurring lungs. Nevertheless, in this case, we did have edematous lungs. Now, edematous lungs means fluid collection within them. The lungs, in her case, there's a lot of fluid in there, so that tells me it's inconsistent with electrocution and consistent with drowning.
Even though the original autopsy report didn't rule out electrocution, it's more likely Kathy drowned. That's huge.
What we do see in the autopsy is documentation of several small bruises around the face and chin and the inner aspects of the arm. So we're just talking somewhere here.
2 by 2 centimeters.
Yeah, now if they're 2 by 2, basically is almost not quite an inch.
The bruises on Kathy's arms are suspicious, and they're also about the same size as thumbs. Thumbs that could belong to an assailant who clutched her arms as they held her beneath the bathwater to drown her.
What they did notice at autopsy was rigor was no longer present in the large joints, but was still present in the ankles and wrist. That tells me it's been a while.
Many factors affect rigor mortis, but typically soon after death. Chemical changes in the body cause a gradual stiffening of the muscles, which would put you in full rigor in about 12 hours. Then the process reverses in much the same way. Earl claimed that Kathy was alive when he left the house at 7 a.m., and she was dead when he returned at 4:30 p.m., suggesting that she died taking a morning bath. And when Kathy's coroner arrived, he noticed minor stiffness in her body, which would be consistent with the early stages of rigor, not rigor that had over 8 hours to set in.
The other issue is when they opened the stomach and documented the contents. We've got corn and peas. What's in her stomach from her last meal, time-wise, suggests an evening meal and not a breakfast-type meal.
Peas and corn sound a lot more like dinner than breakfast. And if you consider that Earl told Detective Roberts that Kathy had taken a bath the night before.
Earl told you that?
Yes.
It seems likely that that's when Kathy actually died, which means her body was at the end stages of rigor. And that means Earl was lying.
You didn't see anything that had anything to do with her having any sort of cancer in her body?
Dr. Weinbaum, who did the autopsy, was routinely looking for natural disease. So if he had seen cancer, he would have noted that. And the fact that it's not in his report says there's actually no evidence of cancer going on.
It's now crystal clear that all of Earl's stories about Kathy having cancer were just that, a bunch of stories. Most likely just to garner sympathy from all the other women in his life.
Doc, I got a question for you. And we all know about the second wife.
Second death, yes.
Both of them are water related. From medical terms, is there anything that you can think of why someone would choose a water-related death multiple times?
And this has nothing to do with forensics, but I mean, anything you do, if you've been successful on, one occasion and, gotten away with it, why change?
Our main suspect, Earl Taylor, just showed up at the sheriff's office. Oh my goodness. I'm wondering if he heard we are reinvestigating the case. But more importantly, what the hell is he doing here?
Our main suspect in Kathy Taylor's murder, her husband Earl, just showed up at the sheriff's office. Unfortunately, he wasn't here to confess. He just came to register as a violent offender.
So he registered with his current address, phone number, all that kind of stuff?
As of right now, we just have the address for where he's living.
It's too early for us to question him about Kathy's death, but it's just another frightening reminder that he is back on the streets.
Bet he just doesn't have any idea what's coming.
It's been established that Kathy likely died from drowning and not electrocution, which suggests that her accidental death was staged. But we want to look at the other physical evidence to see if it supports that conclusion.
This is Kelly.
Hello.
This is one of our detectives, Derek Fell. Next to you, this is Mr. Mowbray.
Dale Mowbray was the electrician that examined the clock radio that Earl claims fell into the bathtub and killed Kathy.
When I took it apart, the power supply was shorted out. You know, it could have gotten wet. Mainly, they were interested in the electrical cord on it, and it was excessively long.
Mr. Mowbray, maybe it would help if you looked at the radio and showed us what you saw.
Back in 1975, police purchased a duplicate radio from the manufacturer and compared it to the Taylor's radio. And it was immediately clear to them there was a distinct difference.
Okay, here's your brown.
Yeah, this is probably not over 6 feet. This white one is probably close to 10 feet. That indicated to me that somebody had changed the cord to be excessively long.
This part right here, is that typical looking?
No.
No, they're not.
This was not the plug that the manufacturer put on.
You would have thought he had enough sense to get the same color.
Well, that's kind of the big clues. The plug is different from the cord, which it never comes from the manufacturer like that.
Earl was convicted of murdering his second wife, Mindy, because it was proven that her so-called accidental death was staged.
It's going to be a tight little space, guys.
Yeah.
It's time we visit the crime scene and try to figure out if Kathy's was too.
It'll be interesting to see how that cord fits.
Yes, it will.
Oh, actually, all of this is the same.
Our bathtub, everything is the same, guys. The difference is we'd have to just picture the doors here, okay?
The most important thing to understand is the distance between the outlet and the tub. According to Earl, Kathy's radio had accidentally fallen into the bath while it was resting on the edge of the tub. The question is that even possible?
Okay, so here we have the manufacturer radio that the sheriff's office had purchased. This would be the 6-foot cord.
So that's the standard cord. You're reaching it as far as you can right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's extended as far as it'll go. I can't pull it any farther.
So now let's look at the other one.
Now we have the actual radio from evidence back in 1975.
Right.
You can already see the difference. So we can move it all the way into the
And right
bathtub,
into the bathtub.
and you still have
Plenty
cord
of
to spare.
excess cord.
If Earl staged the scene to look like an accident, he clearly had to tamper with the radio cord in order for it to reach the tub. And really, what other reason could there be? It makes no sense why Kathy would have wanted something as dangerous as a radio sitting on the edge of her bathtub.
Your counter is literally right here. Why would you not just leave your radio plugged in with a normal cord, leave it on the counter? There's one right there in the corner from our new homeowner. You leave it there. It doesn't even make one bit of sense. It just doesn't.
This wasn't an accident, and the cause of death wasn't electrocution. It was Earl.
The medical examiner does talk about some bruising right on the inside of the arms. I'm kind of thinking pressure points from thumbs. Thumbs are very strong. They're actually the strongest of all of your fingers on your hands. So you're going to add a lot of pressure inside of those arms, holding them down.
Okay, here comes the trial lawyer here. We're going to do a reenactment. A question we get all the time is, how do you prove a murder to a jury? The answer is you show them, but first you have to figure it out. Okay, Yolanda, come get in the tub. Fortunately, Yolanda's a good sport, so she's going to be our victim this time. Okay, so this is what we're going to tell the jury. Steve, you're 6'3", right?
Right.
And Earl is 6'3".
Right.
Okay, you're Earl.
Right.
She's Kathy. She's in the tub. Remember the bruises on the arms. You show us how you think it happened.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach down, I'm going to bend over. He's holding her down here. That's where the bruises are going to come in between the elbow and the shoulder. Her hair is going to get wet because now she's under this 8 inches of water.
Why can't he just come up to her like this and hold her down? and smashing her head and bruising the chin like this.
Could be.
It could be.
I think they even said the bruise on this arm is darker than the one on this arm because he's pushing more weight this way.
Because he's holding his own weight across the bathtub.
Okay, pretzel lady, we're going to try the third theory. You're going to lay face down in the tub. This is how the injuries of the chin could occur.
I know, but why would she let him do that?
How about this? Does he have to push her head to the side and hold her head to the side to get her underwater? 8 inches is up to here.
See?
You may have to shove her chin to the side while you're holding here and pushing to get her head under the water to drown her.
John nailed it. With the bruises to Kathy's chin, it's likely Earl pushed her face to the side beneath the water until she drowned.
He was talking about he pulled her out. How would you have been able to get out with the doors being there?
When police arrived, Earl had already removed Kathy from the bath and had set her beside the tub. But given the small space and the sliding doors on the bathtub, it's not natural for him to have placed her there.
You pull her towards the hallway.
Yeah.
You wouldn't pull her into here, right?
Yep.
My theory is he doesn't pull her out of this side. He actually slides it this way.
It makes much more sense for Earl to have removed Kathy from the tub and laid her near the hallway.
I'm going to pull her out at an angle and leave her right here because there's more of an area.
And since that's not where Kathy was, it suggests something else altogether.
Her waist.
Y'all want to strategize on how you're going to approach Earl?
I'm torn on whether Earl's is going to speak to us or not.
He's not an emotional guy. You know, he's just going to be a flatliner. And you're going to have to go in there. We're going to have to hit him with just the facts, just a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
It's time to talk to the person who killed Kathy Taylor, her ex-husband, Earl Taylor.
Okay, we're good.
Earl stopped by the sheriff's department several days ago, but I don't think we're going to be that lucky today. We're going to have to go out and track him down.
Hit the library?
Yep.
We know that he goes to the library to use the computer because he doesn't have one. So hopefully we find him there.
They were saying he was creeping out the women in the library already.
Since he's been out?
Yeah, he goes there and hangs out on the computer all day.
He does?
Yeah, I guess what else is he going to do?
Unless he's trying to get close to some woman already.
I bet he's scouting them out.
Oh, I'm sure. He's been out a couple months.
Going right here.
Hey, we're just trying to find somebody that we heard that was hanging out here. Tall, 6'3", gray hair, older gentleman. You think that's him in here? White shirt, maybe? It's hard to say.
You Earl Taylor? Yes. Derek Phil, Sheriff's Office, Vigo County. How you doing? Good, how you doing?
Do you mind talking to me just for a minute? I'd appreciate it. We won't take up too much time, I promise.
Earl just spent 27 years in prison. I'm sure he has no intentions of going back.
Get cool. Too hot outside. So you probably didn't expect for me to walk up to you in the library, did you?
That would be an understatement.
We just basically want to talk to you about back in 1975 when your first wife, Kathy, was found dead, okay?
I have no comment. Thank you. Have a good day, Joe.
Earl, you've never even been talked to about this.
Over.
Wouldn't you know, Earl's all nice and friendly until you ask him about Kathy. I'm not surprised.
God. Man, when I walked up to him, I was surprised he didn't want to leave the computer.
That's all right, boys. We didn't need him to say anything.
Nope, that's exactly right. He better enjoy that freedom. He ain't gonna have it for long.
Yeah. When you work on cold cases, you want there to be a day where your evidence is good. And you never want to feel like a suspect has to confess or has to make a stupid news story or even has to talk. You want to have a case to where when you walk up to him and he says, I ain't got nothing to say to you, you're like, that's fine with me. And that's what we have.
Out of all the questions we had, we got to 0.
John, Derek, save your chips. You'll have a case one day where you need them to talk. And
Exactly.
you get your chips that day. You don't need them today.
But look at all that you have up there.
Yeah.
We now have a great circumstantial evidence case against Earl Taylor for the murder of his wife, Kathy. We learned her cause of death is inconsistent with accidental electrocution, as Earl claimed.
Inconsistent with electrocution and consistent with drowning.
In examining all the physical evidence, it's pretty clear that the accident was just staged.
It's extended as far as it'll go. This 6-foot cord definitely will not work.
We found witnesses who can testify that not only was Earl's alibi manufactured,
Every place that he went kind of struck me a little bit odd that he remembered the exact time.
but it's just a big old lie.
He claimed to have been gone from 7 to 4:30.
No, he was not, because he
Okay.
came home.
And then there's the motive. The multiple life insurance policies that Earl took out, which paid double if it was an accident, forged with Kathy's signature.
I think he's planning on bumping me off.
I think just looking at that board, it's really obvious that that's a lot of pieces against somebody.
I think we're good. I think there's more than enough here.
Derek?
There's definitely no doubt in my mind that we're ready to take it to the prosecutor's office and see what they say.
We've got a mountain of evidence against Earl. Hopefully we can put him behind bars, this time for the rest of his life. So why don't you line up your meeting with Terry Modisette and Rob? Tell them what all you got. We're ready. Hey, good to see you again. We've built a fantastic case against Earl for the 1975 murder of his wife, Kathy. Right now, we're hoping that the District Attorney, Terry Modisette, has the answer that Kathy's family has been waiting for 39 years.
We've looked over the evidence that's been presented, looked over the probable cause statement, and we think there's enough to file murder charges in this case.
Oh, that's excellent, excellent, excellent.
Awesome.
You guys gave me some additional information that really, I felt like, kind of put us over the edge.
Can I shake your hand and wish you good luck and wish you good luck? Thank you so much.
I'm ready to get a piece of paper and go pick somebody up. It's a win. It's just a perfect win because here's something that a lot of people have just given up on. Don't expect anything's going to happen with it. Everybody put their heart into it, and we get charges filed. It's a great feeling on this one.
Earl Taylor, like most human beings, is a creature of habit, and we're going to go back to the library and check for him, and hopefully we find him there.
You got eyes on him? I'll tell you exactly what he's wearing. Blue T-shirt, black ball cap, black slacks.
Earl Taylor? Under arrest for the murder of Kathy Taylor.
Hands behind your back.
Kathy Taylor is the kind of victim you go into law enforcement to help. And if you decide you want to be a cop like Derek and John, there's never a more important case you're going to work on than one like this. You're never going to get more satisfaction, and you're never going to get more justice than taking a murderer like Earl Taylor off the streets of your county. Morning, ladies. Glad to see y'all again.
Glad to see you too. See you.
We got goodies.
He needs to share it with you, okay?
He's not going to share them.
Maxine and Bonnie have been praying for this day to come. And it feels great to be part of a team to let them know the day is here.
We've had a productive week. Our team has been able to put a lot of pieces to this puzzle together, and we've arrested Earl. He's going to go to jail for the murder of Kathy.
Praise the Lord.
Been a long time coming.
I don't know how to thank you.
You don't need to thank us.
This case is strong enough now with all the witnesses that they found that if it goes to trial and he gets convicted and he goes to prison again, he's not getting out until he dies.
Good. It's something that you waited for so long. For him to pay for what he's done to my daughter. This is a happy day for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bonnie, you keep praying.
I will.
Oh, thank you so much for having trust in us.
I'm very, very happy for you. I really, truly am.
It's wonderful.
It's all going to be okay now.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so
I'm happy for you guys.
Thank you.
Great satisfaction because they've been waiting for 39 years. That's longer than I've been alive.
We finally got it.
Kathy Taylor deserved justice. Her family deserves justice. And now they're finally going to have it. Maybe lightning really does strike twice.
As part of an ongoing review of cold cases here at the Sheriff's Office, we recently reopened the Kathy Dean Taylor death investigation. It's been a lot of years. A lot of years. We're determined to bring justice, and today that's what we have done.
Hi. My wife of 13 and a half years disappeared last night. The car and her is gone. Something is really wrong here.
Debbie Bailey was 32 years old, married.
2 little sons. She's home playing Monopoly and watching movies with her boys, because that's the most important thing, and look what happens. Back in February 1997, Debbie Bailey left her house around 11 on a Saturday night. Her husband, Barry, said he woke up and discovered her missing.
We really suspect foul play. Real worried. There's something really bad going on.
The next morning, she was found shot in the head 4 times on the side of the road.
The big question is, what was she doing there?
Doesn't make a lot of sense. Immediately following her death, Barry Bailey told the police that a drug deal gone bad could have been the cause of her murder. After Deborah was killed, I don't understand why her husband had the need to say ugly, ugly things about her to everyone he ran into, including the kids.
Forensically, this is a challenging case because while some evidence and fingerprints were tested, the results were inconclusive.
Even though this case is 17 years old, we have a lot of witnesses.
There is a lot of really good clues.
A bunch of little bitty things, and if we can put them all together in a nice logical story, then maybe we can convince the DA here to move forward. The Yakima County Sheriff's Department always considered Barry Bailey to be a potential suspect in his wife's murder, but there's never been enough evidence to prove that. If it is true, we're going to need to try and do just that. There are so many cold cases out there just waiting to be solved.
The crime scene ultimately tells the story of the murder.
We want to bring justice to these victims.
Look, apples.
Wow, that's so freaking cool.
Be careful for worms and stuff.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm Kelly.
Kelly Dave Johnson.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Judd Talbot.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Glad to have you here.
Well, we're happy to be here. We hope y'all aren't regretting this yet.
We want cuffs on by Friday.
Well, maybe we can work that.
Okay.
Well,
we have a war room.
Let's go see it.
All
Let's
right.
go see it.
I received the case in January of '99. I met Debbie's parents and felt compelled to work for them.
Nubbin Chambly. Hey, Steve. How you doing? How you doing?
Steve Spingola, sir.
Steve,
Nice to meet you, sir.
Yolanda and I have Steve Spingola coming back this week, and for the first time, we're bringing back Nubbin Chambly.
Dave? Morning.
Debbie, how you doing? Good. Nice to meet you.
I've been in law enforcement for 33 years before I retired in '06. And a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to work with Kelly and Yolanda.
Baby, high five.
I said, man, that'd be my goal to get to do another case with them. And lo and behold, 2 years later, I got a call. Of course, I jumped at the opportunity.
This should be a great team.
You said y'all have had how many detectives work on this case?
I think I'm the 6th or 7th guy that's been assigned to it. This case went through different investigators' hands. They were never able to really nail down enough evidence to charge anyone because this is strictly a circumstantial case, and those are very, very hard.
Well, y'all want to start with putting our first picture up of our victim?
Debbie was the mother of 2 boys, beautiful lady, 32 years old.
Miss Congeniality.
In the competition for Miss Washington. She was a wonderful mother, according to her parents, all of her friends and family.
Y'all want to tell us about the crime scene and what happened?
In the early morning of February the 16th of 1997, a small 2-door Volkswagen was pulled off on the edge of the road. The car was seen by witnesses a number of different times. Finally, a passerby stopped, and actually 1 o'clock in the evening on the 15th, and the time of her discovery early on the 16th.
According to Barry Bailey and their 2 sons, the whole family watched movies that night. Barry fell asleep on the couch around 10 o'clock, and later on, Debbie put the kids to bed.
Barry says he wakes up around 12:30, 1 o'clock, and she's gone.
Okay, let's start with all of the things that we think are incriminating against Barry.
He's the husband. He started calling a friend by the name of Cindy Hill, who worked at 911, reporting that his wife was missing.
He never calls the real 911. He keeps calling her.
Right.
I woke up, I'm on the couch, and she's out with her friends or something. Oh, shit. I tried calling her cell phone, turned off or something.
He tries to create an alibi.
So he's not just alibying himself, he's making sure it's recorded.
That's right.
This call, which was made from Barry's home phone, corroborates his alibi, which begins at 1:23 in the morning. What's curious about this call is that Barry seems a whole lot less concerned about his missing wife than he does about making sure his statement is recorded.
It's a matter of record, doesn't he say that at one point? It's a
Yes,
matter of record.
he does.
He does.
What about all the statements he's making after she has passed away that everybody else is saying is incorrect about her life?
Right.
I should go back in there and store up blank. It's like hundreds and hundreds of bucks every month.
After Debbie's murder, Barry talked to everybody from law enforcement to the local media, trying to tell everyone that she was the biggest drug addict in Yakima County and spending all of their money on drugs. The story evolves into she's the biggest doper in Yakima County.
Correct.
But the thing about it is all of her friends say she might have been a recreational drug user, but she was a wonderful employee and a loving mother, unlike the way Barry was describing her. What about the telephone?
A phone call came in at 11:19 to Barry's cell phone.
Last 43 seconds.
While Barry says he's asleep, his phone answers a call the sheriffs believe was made by a man named Timmy McKimmey. Timmy McKimmey is the unknown in this case. Law enforcement has always suspected Barry Bailey and his wife's murder, but now we have a phone call that connects Timmy McKimmey to Barry at the same time, which makes us ask ourselves if Timmy can be connected to the murder of Debbie also.
They're friends.
But he doesn't really know Deborah too well, just through Barry, right?
Just through Barry.
Timmy gave 2 statements, did the polygraph, failed miserably, and then lawyered up.
Question number 1, do you know for sure who shot Debbie? He said no. He failed that pretty bad. Did you plan with anyone to kill Debbie? And he said no. Those are the high spikes.
Polygraphs are not always reliable and they are not admissible in the courtroom, but the results of Timmy McKimmey's polygraph sure make you wonder if he knows more or if he's involved. So what we would like to try to do this week is be able to answer definitively if Barry Bailey did it alone and he's the shooter and all by himself, or if he's the hirer and possibly Timmy McKimmey is the shooter and or the getaway driver.
That's right.
If Barry and Timmy are involved, we want to build a case that shows their motive, but we're also going to need a timeline that clearly shows that involvement. We are also going to have to disprove Barry's claims that drugs played a role in all of this. He's always talking, he's always calling, he's even complaining and criticizing y'all. Did he ever quit talking to y'all?
Yes, he did stop talking after statement number 7, I think, 6 or 7.
Talking to Barry is going to be crucial in this case because nobody has talked to him in 15 years. With the evidence that we find this week, we can take another run at Barry and hope to get the justice that Debbie and her family have been looking for 17 years.
Morning, folks.
Morning.
Morning.
Kelly, Yolanda, these are the Smothermans.
Hi.
Debbie's parents and her brother Scott have been involved in this investigation for all these years. They were close to her in her life all the way up until the time of her murder.
Debbie was full of energy from the day she was born, and she never slowed down. She was a daddy's girl.
She always helped me do whatever I wanted, baled hay, whatever. She was just always there for me no matter what. I mean, she's one of those people that always looked out for the little guy.
She had a lot of love.
Who wants to claim credit for her beautiful looks?
And she was also Miss Washington?
She got Miss Congeniality in the contest.
Okay.
What kind of mom was she?
Oh, her boys were her life, and she watched over them like a little mother hen.
After Debbie died, Barry kept custody of their 2 boys. What kind of contact do y'all have with the boys?
You know, we've tried, but they don't have much to do with us.
How about with Barry?
None.
Barry called Carl and Pearl and Scott that morning when Debbie went missing, so they went to the house and they were still there when law enforcement kind of unexpectedly showed up.
They said that they had found her and that she had been murdered. And Barry says, I bet it had something to do with drugs.
I'm not saying that she, didn't smoke marijuana or didn't take some drugs. I don't know for sure. But she would never go to the extreme to where she wouldn't be able to take care of her boys. She would never do that.
So what we're going to do now is start talking to all these people on the list, one by one.
Been a lot of people praying for something like this. You don't realize how many.
Tell them to keep praying.
Thanks, man.
We're investigating the murder of Debbie Bailey, a mother of two and a former Miss Washington contestant. She was last seen alive around 11 p.m. on February the 15th, 1997. An eyewitness who was driving home that night saw Debbie's car on a mountain road around 11:20.
In your recollection, it wouldn't take you any longer than 20 minutes to drive
it would not.
to that point on the hill.
No. Because it was so dark, our eyewitness couldn't see whether Debbie was alone in the car that night, so we need to try and figure out what was going on in the world of our suspects at around that same time.
Thank you so much.
Barry Bailey was always considered a suspect in this case. Timmy McKimmey did not come into the picture until the Sheriff's Department collected cell phone records from Barry Bailey's phone, which showed an incoming call that night at 11:19, and that call traced back to a friend of Timmy McKimmey's whose name is Gary Van Horn.
Tim McKimmey came over about 9 o'clock.
Was he invited?
No, he just showed up.
Nice.
Do you remember anything about phone calls?
Yeah, he went in the kitchen and talked.
And you heard that conversation?
No. I have no idea what he was talking about.
Okay.
He gave me $25 to use my truck.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Timmy later on said that he phoned Barry about a job, but he denied using that truck. Later on, he says he did use the truck for a beer run. He never could explain why he needed to borrow a truck to do something he could have done with his own car.
You say you do remember McKimmey leaving?
Yes. Either 11 or 11:30.
I thought it was odd. But
Yeah, well.
Why did you think it was odd?
for somebody to go using somebody's truck at night like that, I thought it was very strange.
I kind of fell asleep a little bit. Tim woke me up like 12:30 to 1:45. He gave me my keys for my truck.
When Barry was questioned about the phone call from Tim McKimmey, he denied it until he was confronted with Timmy's statement. Then he changed his story and said, they had talked about fixing a car. Both men seemed to want to hide that phone call and what they were doing during that time period, so we need to figure this out. What if we put a timeline on the board where both Barry and McKimmey are unaccounted for?
See where we can get it.
Yeah, let's start doing that.
A strong timeline can establish that our suspects had the opportunity to commit the crime. We need to piece together who was where and at what time, and then look for gaps and inconsistencies.
Okay, so the time we want to start with the night before is what? What time does Timmy go to Gary Van Horn's?
9 o'clock.
Okay, next.
10:15, Barry falls asleep.
What's Debbie doing around this time?
Watching movies with the kids.
Debbie is putting them in bed at 11.
At 11:19 p.m., Timmy makes a phone call from the Van Horn's house to Barry's cell phone. At 11:20 p.m., Debbie's car is spotted on the road, which means Debbie and possibly Barry traveled to the crime scene while Timmy was still at the Van Horn house. Timmy leaves there at 11:30 p.m. and doesn't return back till 1 o'clock a.m.
Okay, next.
Barry called Cindy.
1:23. Investigators were unable to find anyone to corroborate either Barry's alibi from 11 p.m. to 1:23 a.m. or Timmy's from 11:30 p.m. to 1 o'clock a.m. when he returned to the Van Horns.
All right, you have Timmy on Barry with a gap at the same time.
About an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
It's interesting that Barry and Timmy share this time frame. It's right after they talk on the phone and around the time that Debbie's car appears. It makes you wonder if Barry and Timmy could have been together.
All right, so let's do the math. If Timmy leaves the house to drive to the scene, how long is it going to take him? And be conservative, err in his favor.
He could do it in 30.
Okay, so we got 30 minutes to get there.
For Timmy to drive to the murder scene, pick up Barry, drop him off at home, then make his way back to the Van Horns could have all been completed within a 90-minute time frame. Even for a scenario where Timmy is the
alcove cutout on a mountainside. They have her car that's been an impound all these years.
Early on in the investigation, we refused to give the car that Deborah was killed in back to her husband, Barry Bailey. It was important to us because it was the crime scene. Putting the car back could be used to help explain what the original detectives had seen that day.
Get to see the area and how remote it is.
Yes. At nighttime, this would be very dark out
Oh
here.
my gosh, yeah. I can't see her coming out here at 11 o'clock at night by herself.
No.
Sheriff's Office found Debbie Bailey shot in 1997.
Hi.
Hello. Well, hey, boy, you talk about an isolated spot.
Not only do we have the actual vehicle that Debbie was found in, but Jeff Gillespie, the original lead investigator on the case, is showing us firsthand what they initially discovered.
So her car is consistent with coming from her house. Show us what y'all found with the car.
Yes.
Well, when I got here, which was about noon, there was a female slumped in the driver's side seat, and she had obvious head trauma. She was obviously deceased and had been for a while. I could tell there were 322 shell casings right outside the driver's side door.
The location of the casings, where they are near the front driver's wheel. That makes the first scenario we imagined, one where a person just walks up to Debbie and shoots her 3 times in the head, very possible. There could be another scenario because there's also evidence that somebody had been sitting in Debbie's passenger seat that night.
I thought there was something in the back seat.
Her purse.
Her purse
was in the back seat.
Zipped up.
99% of the women put their purse on the front seat if nobody's sitting there.
That's true.
Yep.
If my purse is in the back seat of a car, somebody's in the way in the passenger side. Otherwise, I would have it right there beside me. I don't ever put my purse away from me. No girl does. That tells us that whoever was with her that night could have ridden with her. So why were the shots fired from outside the car?
You can see the amount of mud that's still on that rocker panel. It was like the width of maybe a heel on a boot or a shoe.
Yeah, you're trying to get out and your foot just skims on it like that.
But it was obviously fresh.
Right, right.
In this scenario for Debbie's shooting, the passenger who came with Debbie could have been the one who killed her.
So you get in the car.
The passenger who was with Debbie that night actually got out of the car. Their right foot, the heel, scraped against some of the mud. And then he walked behind the car. Debbie stayed in the car, told her to roll her window down.
She rolls the window down. So I'm rolling it down, pretend like it's down. Okay, so I thought she looked around at her shooter.
No, she's looking straight ahead.
Then why is he going around and coming back toward the front of her?
If he went around back, he'd have plenty of time to get the gun out without
Of
her
course,
seeing
so
him.
she couldn't see it, but we know that it is coming in this angle.
Okay. Okay, so now stick your arm out the way you're holding the gun. Is that the right distance?
Easily.
Yeah, easily. It's 6 to 30 inches.
Bang. Bang. Bang.
3 times. Then comes around. Bang.
Bang.
4th shot into the back side of the head.
The passenger who might have ridden with Debbie would have still needed a separate driver to get away from the scene. So either our driver or the passenger in Debbie's car could have fired the shots that killed her. The question is, why would they do it and take nothing from the car?
Nothing from her purse, nothing from her. Jeff Gillespie actually brought Barry to the crime scene 8 days after the murder. At that time, Barry had not been given certain specific details of the murder, such as how many times Debbie had been shot.
I said, well, Barry, why don't you go ahead and tell me what you think happened here? And he said, well, she met up with her drug dealer, rode out to this area, and then she owed him, he said, I think like $75 or $100. He said that her drug dealer needed to get out and take a piss, and that gave him the excuse to get out of the car. They walked up to the car, bang, bang, bang. Then he paused for a while, then went one bang again, and she was dead.
Without any details of what happened that night, Barry was able to reconstruct down to pretty good detail exactly what happened, just like all these investigators have always thought it happened. If this really was a case of drug dealers and a drug deal gone bad, then why is her purse still sitting in the back seat unopened? It just doesn't make any sense. We need to find out whether or not Barry's claim that Debbie was doing a lot more than just recreational drugs is true. Let's talk to our witnesses and see how far we can get. All right? All right.
Investigators never found a connection between drug dealers and Debbie's murder, but they did find people like Terry Morton, a friend of Debbie's and Barry's.
Did he ever tell you who he thought would have done something this terrible? I mean, did she have somebody?
I think he said that he felt it was a drug dealer type thing, you know.
Did you ever know who her source was?
Well, the last person I knew it was Tim McKimmey, you know.
Timmy was giving her the dope.
Everybody was guilty from it.
Terry's claims that Timmy could have been a drug dealer is a big deal, but it doesn't really tell us that Debbie was putting herself in debt over drugs.
She was an occasional user. It wasn't running her life.
How much was she typically paying for that at that point?
Barry would give me weed, and then he'd give me a little bit of cash and trade for that.
You're telling me that he's the one that was doing the purchasing.
Right.
If Barry really was putting up the cash or dealing drugs himself in exchange for cocaine, then why would he try to make her into this horrible drug user and he had nothing to do with all of it?
4 couples of us went out on a limo ride. And basically, I was there to supply the dope.
He ain't gonna hold back about it, is he?
No.
So he was buying it for her?
And him.
And himself?
And him.
According to our witnesses, Barry Bailey was doing drugs, trading drugs, and buying drugs. For a guy who pretends like his wife had such a horrible drug habit, it sure sounds like he was doing all that he could to facilitate it.
I mean, we all bitch about our old ladies, you know, but this is the way he said I'm listening him straight on. He goes, but if you think about taking her on a fishing trip and tipping the boat over, and when she reaches for the oar, crack the bitch over the head. And then to find out that like a month later she got killed, I believe it was Barry. Straight up Barry. Yeah, 100%.
Excellent. Excellent. Based on this timeline, both Barry Bailey and Timmy McKimmey had the opportunity to murder Debbie. But we're going to have to better understand Barry and Debbie's relationship to figure out if there's a motive in the middle of it. Barry Bailey's previous wife said he was abusive to her, so we need to try and figure out whether or not that pattern of abuse continued.
What was the relationship between Barry and Debbie back in that time?
I know there was a few times he blew up at her. He pushed her one time.
So he got physical with her? Just a push?
Yeah, and I was like, holy crap.
She ever talk about it was so bad in the marriage that she was going to divorce Barry?
I know that she did say, because he was married once before, that, you know, if he would never lose everything to a wife again.
He wouldn't lose anything to a wife again.
Like property, you know. That's what I used to hear him say.
Hear him say.
According to all the records, Barry and his first wife split their finances 50-50, but he was complaining that he deserved more.
Thank you very much.
If Barry and Debbie really were fighting and a divorce was imminent, could that be the reason why all of this happened and that's his motive?
Star, we thank you so much for coming in.
Star was a friend of Debbie's. They met through Debbie's job, an interior design company.
One day she came down really upset. Well, she called me and said she'd like to talk with me because at that time I had a nonprofit called CARES, and I helped women get divorces and protection orders and things.
Wow.
And I said, well, what's going on? And she told me that her husband, he was very abusive to her, physically and emotionally, mostly emotionally, that he was very controlling, and it wasn't too long after that she was dead.
We know she never filed any paperwork, but the question is whether Debbie ever mentioned the threat of divorce to Barry.
She just didn't want it to get back to Barry that she was talking to people.
Okay.
You know, when the abuser who controls you knows that, that's the most dangerous time.
This is the number for Julie Cabridge.
Yeah.
Julie Cabrick was probably Debbie's closest friend. She was also her employer. She talked to Debbie almost daily, and there had to have been a time as her best girlfriend that she knew a lot of what was going on in the marriage of Debbie and Barry.
He had hit her and hurt her. So she kind of a horrible thing, but she waited until he'd gone to sleep and she tied the sheets down to the bed so he couldn't get away. And she smacked him several times with a frying pan and told him that if he ever hit her again, that she was going to beat him a lot harder than that. She was becoming more independent, and he didn't like it.
Okay.
Shortly before she was killed, she had come to me. She had mentioned that she was looking at getting a divorce, and because of all the illegal things that Barry had done, no matter what, if they got a divorce, she would get divorced. My thought is that he just decided, all right, I'm not going to lose my house, I'm not going to lose this stuff, I'm not going to lose the boy, so I'm going to kill you. So he just shot her. That's what I think happened. I think that she took a heck of a lot of damning evidence to her grave.
Okay.
Throughout the years before and after Debbie's death, Barry was convicted of stolen property crimes, arson, theft, abuse, but Debbie also was aware of his continuingly ongoing criminal activities with drugs and stolen cars and things like that. If she had been threatening to tell the world about that, maybe that's our motive. Look how much she just adds to the case all by herself.
Yeah.
We now have a motive for Barry. We already had the opportunity for him and Timmy to commit this crime. Now we need to figure out if there's a means for them to have done it. We know Debbie was shot with a .22 caliber pistol. After the murder, Barry did turn over all of his weapons to the authorities, but none of those weapons matched. We need to try and figure out if there was some other gun that either Barry or Timmy had access to. Starting with the one that all of the investigator notes say Debbie owned herself.
Barry and me and Debbie were all sitting at the kitchen table, and she come out and got her gun that Barry had bought her. It was small. It was about like this, and I know that gun has never been around since, and I know that gun exists. I touched that gun.
If anyone knows where this gun went, it might be Al Farnsworth. Al worked closely with Barry in the years following Debbie's murder on construction jobs, and in 2001 he called the authorities because of some suspicious statements that Barry made to him.
After putting the hotel sign up, and we're down there, we're digging the dirt out, putting rebar in, and he said that the murder weapon is in many small pieces and is scattered throughout some river. He also said that I wish I hadn't done it.
And what was he referring to when he said he wished he hadn't done it?
The murder.
The murder? Is that your interpretation or what he said?
No, that's my interpretation.
Okay.
What else could it be? He was actually going to tell me about it, and I shut him up.
Al Farnsworth made a statement back then about this gun that Barry told him he threw in the water. It wasn't enough at the time, along with everything else, to make the prosecutors want to move forward. But when you take that statement along with the other witnesses who will say that Debbie had a gun that's now missing, you get a clearer picture of the idea that our murder weapon might be that weapon of Debbie's that's never going to be found.
Do you regret not letting him talk?
I think about that. But then I'm up for getting shot in the back of the head, same as the wife.
Yeah.
All throughout the week, we've been following every lead we can to try and find Timmy McKimmey.
You still see Tim?
No.
I don't know. I just understand he lives out of town.
You think he's still in the Yakima area, or is he out of state?
I don't really know.
He's the real play here. He's the real potential. He would be the witness a prosecution would want to cut a deal with as long as he's not the shooter. We called all of his old jobs. We talked to his ex. Somebody said he's couch surfing now, which is a new term I've never heard.
We searched and searched, and we weren't able to find Timmy.
Maybe we'll get lucky.
He's pretty much gone off the grid. He's not getting a government check that we can find. What happened?
She's been there since August.
So he's not at this house?
No.
He might have gotten word that we're looking into the case, or maybe he's just dropped out of sight. We just don't know. We meet with the DA tomorrow, so we're headed back to town to work on the probable cause. In the meantime, Steve and Judd are headed to Idaho to try and talk to Barry. We might not have been able to find Timmy and talk to him, but Barry doesn't know that. So hopefully we can use what information we do have to our advantage.
Good golly.
How far is it out here?
I don't know, man. I'm telling you. We're out of gas before we get there.
We're driving about 3.5 hours by car to actually go locate Barry. He's living in Idaho on a, I must say, a ranch. It almost looks like a mini junkyard when you get there.
This is going to be the house.
This is the house?
That might be the house. Right here.
I got somebody in the shop.
That's probably him.
We knocked, and when he opened that door, I thought he was about to have a heart attack. He couldn't believe that law enforcement was standing on his property.
This is regarding the Deborah Bailey homicide.
Right. Honestly, I really I mean, I think about Debbie almost every hour of every day. I tell you, whoever or what, it could even be a group, who knows, but I'm pretty convinced it was some Mexicans or some kind of, you know, she owed money, a lot of money, and...
Who was she buying it from?
I was never in that circle and didn't want to be.
Well,
I hate drugs. I've always hated drugs. But these, just like the beheadings you see on TV now, and the Mexican cartel down in Mexico, all the beheadings and the horrible, horrible violence. The world is a shitstorm, man. And it's,
this is
the
true.
value of human life is lessened every day. The value of the marriage, the sanctity of marriage, all of that.
You know the gun that you bought for Debbie, that .22? You were at a party. Debbie brought the gun out.
Never in front of me.
She said you bought it for her. She was all proud about it.
Debbie hated guns. That's a real mystery. But is it possible that I did get that to give it or sell it to Debbie and she sold it to somebody but didn't? And she kept it all those years? Because Debbie did tell me some lies and did hide a lot of stuff from me, so that's all I can say.
Did you and Debbie ever talk about divorce?
I guess she was working on some sort of divorce, which shocks me. I heard that way after the fact. Didn't know a thing about that.
Convince me, tell me why you wouldn't have killed Debbie.
I couldn't do something like that. I couldn't harm her.
You ever remember telling Al Farnsworth you were sorry you did it?
No, I don't. Al said that?
Al said that you said that.
I might have said there's times that I'm not sorry she's gone. There was things about Debbie, you know, let's face it, everyone's got, you know, there's things about her that I'm like, well, I guess I don't miss that, you know.
He also said the gun that was used was cut up and in the river, thrown in water. Did you ever make that statement?
No.
Would you be willing to take a polygraph or not?
No. That's crazy talk. That's weird.
How would Al know that unless you told him?
I don't remember. I don't tell him. Debbie didn't tell him like that. Why would I tell him something like that?
Think about Tim. What do you think Tim's telling us?
I don't know.
Take a good guess.
I don't know. Oh my God.
Tim's the weak link in the chain here, Barry.
This is crazy.
Stop. Barry, if they gave you a one-time deal on this.
Oh.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
One-time deal.
Yeah,
One-time deal.
No. This is like a nightmare.
It is, for Debbie.
I just want to live my life.
Well, things change, Barry. A shitstorm is coming your way. One-time deal, Barry. We get the DA, we do this.
Oh, no, I know what you're proposing. No, sure, I can't do that.
Can't do that.
No, I can't confess or to something I have nothing to.
Stop.
I did not do.
It's over with.
I want to end this conversation because...
Okay. I'm going to end the tape now. Time is 7 minutes to 11.
Okay, guys, Yolanda, we have trekked through all of Washington and all the way into Idaho. Y'all found Barry. We cannot find McKimmey. Every other witness has been talked to.
Can we charge both of them with murder?
As long as we can show that McKimmey was involved before the murder happened, then he can be charged.
Okay.
Since the evidence is consistent with the idea that two people committed this murder, and because we know that Timmy McKimmey called Barry in the minutes before this happened, It makes you wonder if Timmy McKimmey was aware of what was about to happen. You're not just presenting a case that's Barry's lies. You're presenting what Barry says as opposed to what all these true, credible people say really happened that night and in all the months that followed. You got a really good case. When they get here, y'all let us know.
Okay.
With a few hours left before our meeting with the Yakima County prosecutors, we step out to let our investigators have time to prepare.
Hello? Got a call from Jim Haggerty just a few minutes ago. They've already made their decision. They're not going to file.
Ever?
No, we don't have a case.
Wow. Without even meeting with us, the prosecutors, based on simply reading the probable cause, have made the decision that they are never going to take this case.
I said, I still want you to come down. Let us at least present our case to you.
Well, thank you for doing that. I'm trying not to cry, and I see how emotional Judd is about it, and we're all just, what do you do? And then you get mad, and then you want to do something. If they're going to come anyway, then you have nothing to lose.
No.
Don't take no sitting down. The prosecutor's office has agreed to come over, and we're having this closed-door meeting. It's 4 prosecutors, and Dave and Judd and me, and we're laying out point by point by point every single piece of evidence we have to try and convince them to move forward. Starting with the fact that we very clearly have a suspect who's motivated by an impending divorce.
She was very, very worried. She didn't want it to get back to Barry that she was talking to people.
Both suspects had unsupported alibis during the time that we believe this murder occurred. And Timmy changed his story many times about that truck that he borrowed that night.
Somebody would go using somebody's truck at night like that. I thought it was very strange.
Barry claimed a drug dealer killed his wife, but witnesses say it was Barry who was buying Debbie's drugs that were supplied by Timmy McKinney.
Timmy was giving her the dope.
Everybody was getting it from him.
Our victim was potentially shot with her own gun, a gun that Barry admitted to witnesses he had destroyed.
He said that the murder weapon is scattered throughout some river.
Barry spent his entire life doing nothing but bad-mouthing his wife and making her out to be nothing but a piece of trash. And you can feel the mood in the room change. I'll look over at Judd and I'll say, it's okay. And he goes, yeah, it's okay. All right, guys.
They're going to take the case.
Oh, my God.
Are you serious? Yep.
Oh, my God. The meeting ended with them agreeing to divide up the case file to read so that they can move forward.
We convinced them to turn it around.
Now you're going to get what you've been wanting to get for a long, long time. Now we're just hoping they will file charges against Barry and Timmy McKimmey.
Good book. Proud of you. They didn't take the case, and then finally we go back in and they took the case. It was a hard day for all of us, especially the investigators that were so close to the case.
Carl and Pearl and Scott are going to be more excited than anybody.
You ready to go tell them?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go tell them. Hello.
Hi.
To be able to go to the Smothermans and say, we got some good news, it's amazing.
So the good news is that your prosecutors, because of Judd and Dave and the chief, are planning to move forward on this case.
Okay, good.
And everywhere we went, all of the people that were friends with Debbie told him how glad they were that the case never got let go. Couldn't have turned out any better.
I just know you never quit.
This is because of you and your wife, for Scott, that we didn't stop.
All these years just hoping and praying, and here it is, you know. Because after a while you get to thinking, well, you know, it's been so many years, nothing's going to happen, and it's just been an answered prayer. There's not a day goes by that I haven't asked God why, you know. And bless your heart. I guess God said, okay, this is the time, and I'm thankful for that.
Well, give us a hug, bye, and ask her more questions.
I know I'll see her. I know she's there waiting, and I love her. as much as I ever did. So
How's it feel to be back in Ohio?
I like Ohio. Very green, very pretty.
We are in Fairview Park, Ohio, looking into the mysterious 2007 death of Gwen Bewley. She was a very active, healthy 67-year-old woman. She's the kind of lady that I want to be when I'm her age.
From what I'm reading, she was a pretty snappy lady, wasn't she?
A spunky thing.
She liked roller skating and just totally carefree. You gotta love it at that age.
She seemed like the kind of lady that walked around making friends with everybody. Gwen went to a roller skating lesson, came home, and shortly after that, a neighbor smelled smoke and reported the fire.
911, what's your emergency? Where at? Right across from the new school. He's on his way.
When the fire department arrived, they discovered Gwen's body lying on the kitchen floor. Her remains were so badly burned, she was unrecognizable.
This is a different kind of case. Fire creates a problem for us.
It complicates things.
Absolutely. Investigators suspected that Gwen's death was murder using arson to cover it up. But fire always creates a challenge forensically. It destroys evidence, and in this case, critical clues as to how Gwen died. It's one of the reasons why this case remains unsolved.
In the world of prosecution, the #1 controversial issue is arson cases. And a lot of cases, at least back home, have been reversed. Arson cases are the trickiest of all because it is a science. So we're going to have to go over all the evidence with a fine-tooth comb in order to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this wasn't just the case of a little old lady who died in a tragic accident.
It's been 16 years and still no evidence. Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
There are so many cold cases out there just waiting to be solved.
The crime scene ultimately tells the story of the murder.
We want to bring justice to these victims.
Hello.
Yolanda McClary, nice to meet you.
Hi, Callie.
Hey, Paul. Nice to meet you finally.
Thank you.
Nice to meet
Eric
you, sir.
Upperman, nice to meet you.
Were y'all all here in 07 when this happened?
In fact, took the phone call. I took the call. Paul and I were on the same shift. I was his shift commander at the time on the 3 to 11 shift.
The case has worked beautifully. We'll hopefully make it even stronger this week, so
let's all get to work.
Very good. All right, Chief, thank you, sir.
We both have put a lot of time and effort into this case, and I just hope, working with Yolanda and Kelly, we can get over that hurdle to at least bring that to a closure for the police department as well as the city.
Hey!
Hello, ladies.
What's up, Mr. Alan Brown?
How's everybody?
This week we're bringing in Alan Brown because we don't have a lot of witnesses in this case, so we need to get all the information out of them that we can. And Alan is as skilled an interrogator as anybody. Tell them how many murders y'all have here in Fairview Park, Ohio.
About 1 every 10 years. And so it's one of those things where you can drive through the city. I remember this crime. I remember this crime.
Okay, y'all want to start by talking about our victim? That's a great picture, Paul. How'd you get that?
From the family.
Look, Yolanda, Red Hat Club.
Love it.
They're kind of known as being vivacious and lively and spunky.
Well, she fit that bill. She lived life to the fullest. Gwen was a mother, a grandmother. She was a free spirit, liked to have a lot of fun. If it felt good, she did it.
Paul, you want to start by telling us about the case the day of?
On August 29, 2007, around 4:45 p.m., we received a 911 phone call of smoke coming out along the roof line of a house.
316, can you see flames?
As I approached the house, a neighbor, Scott Shalene, came out, and there was a car in the driveway. And I said, whose car is that? And he goes, oh my God, that's Gwen's car. So I went around, and we had to retreat because of the heat.
That fast?
Yes.
She was 67. How do we know that she didn't just fall and hit her head?
Well, initially, that's what we all assumed. However, the autopsy showed something different.
The coroner's report showed no signs of carbon monoxide or soot in Gwen's lungs, indicating that she was dead before the fire started. But we're still going to need to show that her death was not an accident. With arson, that's always the first hurdle to overcome. The arson actually complicates a lot of things, what injury she sustained, and then any evidence surrounding her.
Thank goodness the fire marshal said, hey, we're going to handle it like it's a homicide.
We're going to need to meet with the fire marshal in this case. He's the one who investigated the arson, and if this case goes to trial, Not only is his investigation critical, but the way he conducted it is going to be held to the highest standards to show that this is a homicide. Who do y'all want to put up first on our suspect board?
I think that'd be Scott, Shalene.
Scott, her next door neighbor.
For 4 years.
Can't we say they were friends?
Yeah, neighbor, friends.
Anything about his prior criminal history that we care about?
He has assault. He has some drug possessions, fraud, passive bad checks. Scott said that I had a VA appointment. I took a bus. I got home around 4 o'clock. I smelled smoke. I checked my house.
When investigators first arrived at the scene, Scott Shalene acted as a helpful neighbor, answering questions about Gwen's home to assist the rescue effort. But once the murder investigation began, he started to look a little suspicious.
Scott's home right at the time of the fire.
Well, he said he smells it. He starts looking in his own home.
home.
In Scott's initial statement, he stated that he smelled smoke, but never saw any signs of the fire from his house. It seems odd that he wouldn't go check on his neighbor that he supposedly had a really close relationship with.
Okay, who else do we have?
That'd be Timothy, Shalene.
Tim Shalene is Scott Shalene's brother, who had recently moved into the neighborhood to live with his brother, and he had developed a friendship with Gwen. How would you describe his relationship with Gwen? What would you call it?
You could call him friends. She trusted him enough that she allowed him to make financial decisions.
It was a fairly new relationship. He'd only been there since May.
Only 3 months old?
Yes.
He's the last one to see her.
Last one to see her at home.
And where the crime occurred, he was the last one to see her.
On the day of the murder, Tim had lunch with Gwen and left her house around 12:45. He said he then borrowed Gwen's rental car and made a 2-hour trip to Michigan, which means he was nowhere near Gwen's house that afternoon.
Okay, so do we want to go to his list of crimes that are pertinent now? Forgery, fraud crimes, conning.
A lot of fraud.
Now, after her death, I mean, he's caught with her things.
Credit cards and a rental car.
She allowed Tim to use that car to go on his new job.
To go to Michigan and come back.
Yes, sir.
1 week after Gwen's death, Tim was pulled over for driving her rental car and arrested for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Police recovered some of Gwen's property inside that car, including 3 credit cards that Tim had been using that belonged to Gwen, as well as a laptop. Tim was allowed to borrow Gwen's car when she was alive, and maybe even her credit cards because he was her financial advisor. But using those credit cards after her death isn't just suspicious, it's also a crime that he actually served time for. Well, since y'all have so few murder cases, then you're not used to having to present it to the DA's office to convince them because you don't go do it that often. Okay. In anticipation of you going down to talk to the prosecutors about this case, all these little things that we're making you say to us, those are all the things that are very important for you to sell the case.
Right.
By the time we get done, you're going to teach you how to argue back and be rude.
Wow.
We've got a lot to do. We've got to show beyond a reasonable doubt that Gwen's death was no accident, and also that the fire marshal's investigation is going to hold up a trial. And we've also got the Shalene brothers to deal with. They both knew the victim, they both lived near the victim, so we have to figure out whether either one of them could have been involved.
I could be a small town girl. I know you don't think that, but I maybe could be.
Teach you how to work in the concession stand, and play bingo.
I think it's a kind of a great homey feeling.
Hi. Today we're going to meet one of Gwen's daughters. Her name is Sue. We want to get to know her mom through her to make sure that we all have a clear understanding of Gwen's world. Tell us about your mom.
She was my children's last surviving grandparent. She was very vivacious. She went roller skating. She was on a golfing league. She didn't sit still. She was like a hurricane. Like
really skating? That's something at 67.
Yeah. She loved life, and she lived it to the fullest. That she, you know.
I guess the other part of that, though, is that she's open to making new friends with even people that maybe she might not ought to make friends with, huh?
You know, I never thought I'd have to worry about her because she was so independent. And in Fairview Park, we didn't think you had to worry about anybody there.
You thought you could pretty much trust most people, especially neighbors and stuff.
And she just always said, oh, they're so helpful, they're so friendly. But I would say she was a bit too vulnerable for her own good. I understand you've won every case that you pursued. You must have some really good instincts.
You know what it is? It's all this. It's being prepared, and it's checking out every single thing we can find, and it's a team effort. We're going to do everything that we can, and let's just hope that just enough changes this week to make it finally happen.
I pray to God that they can do what they came here to do and make a difference for my mom's case.
It was very nice to meet you. Come here and give me a hug.
order of investigation on this case is to examine the crime scene. So we're heading to Gwen's house to get a better understanding of the layout and what happened that day. Fortunately, Fire Marshal Frank Reitmeyer has agreed to join us and help.
How are you? Good morning.
Good.
Good morning. How are you?
That's where Scott and Tim lived. I pulled my cruiser up here. Scott came running out. And when I asked whose car is that, that's when he said, oh, that's Gwen's car. Gwen must be inside the house.
Was the fence here for
Yes.
Scott to be able to see over?
That fence was there.
Okay. I gotta be honest, I did not realize how close Scott and Tim's house was to Gwen's. It makes you think, how could Scott not know that Gwen's house was burning when it was only 20 feet away? We're hoping that a look inside of Gwen's house will tell us a little more.
Right here.
We're in Fairview Park, Ohio, looking into the death of 67-year-old Gwen Bewley, whose burned body was found in her home 7 years ago.
Right here.
Oh, wow.
It's different from what it was.
Fire Marshal Frank Reitmeyer investigated the scene that day and is sought to preserve potential evidence. Fortunately, Frank Reitmeyer did just that. It's his analysis that will hopefully show us this fire was an arson and not just a little old lady who had an accident.
Frank, talk about all the things that contributed to the fire on her and around her.
You have to define an area of origin before you can define a cause. And it was very clear that the room of origin was the kitchen.
In determining whether or not a fire is a case of arson, investigators first have to rule out any electrical malfunctions or fire hazards that could have been the source. So we know there's no shorts. We know that it didn't actually start by anything on top of the stove that she was cooking.
Looking at the patterns on the remaining materials that were here, the stove, the walls, the cabinets, the body, the floor, the ceiling. Now I'm down to her body as being the area of fire origin. So the fire started here and it grows up and out, and then it impinged upon the ceiling and burnt through the ceiling.
Fire requires 3 things to make it work: heat, fuel, and oxygen. How does she get all this stuff on top of her? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. You're not going to have a bunch of debris on top of you.
Well, and then how does it become ignited?
So your opinion is somebody put stuff on her and then set it on fire?
Absolutely my opinion. She was dead before the fire of unnatural causes, and then the fire covering up, the homicide.
What's your theory as to how it happens with our suspect?
Well, I think that the suspect was here and they got into a confrontation of some type.
I mean, she didn't lock the door behind her. Very easily could have just come right through the door. I don't think she saw what was coming. They might have just grabbed her, started suffocating her or choking her.
She's in the kitchen doing her thing.
Yeah, I come up behind, lock it in. Before she can even do anything, I have her down on the ground, or I just lock her out, choke, smother, I leave.
Frank, from what I can see in the pictures, and you were there, it looks like the highest concentration of burn on her body is definitely all of her face, her neck area, into this portion of her torso, and her left arm is almost burned off. It's possible the suspect focused on burning Gwen's head and neck to try and cover up injuries she sustained during a confrontation.
The saddest part about all this, though, is that we're standing right here in this nice, cute little safe kitchen in Fairview Park, Ohio, a nice, safe town, and her kids think their mom is safe, and she thinks she's safe, and look what happens. The scenario that the fire marshal played out makes perfect sense. That, plus the evidence he discovered, is going to be crucial in showing the county prosecutor and hopefully a jury one day that beyond a reasonable doubt Gwen was murdered and arson was used to cover it up. Are y'all ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we have a clearer picture of how the murder occurred, we need to put together a timeline for that day.
This is Kelly. Kelly's going to be out today.
Nice to meet you.
Gwen's friend, Lynn Marie Malek, talked to her that day at 2:08 p.m. That is the last time we can say for sure that Gwen was alive.
On the day of the fire, you had a phone conversation with her.
We made arrangements for the next day, but she wasn't sure, like it wasn't completed. And because she said, I think I remember her saying that she had to go.
Why'd she have to go?
I kind of got the impression that somebody was at the door.
So she ended the conversation as if she had to go talk to somebody else.
Right. Or do something else at that time.
But it wasn't the typical, okay, well, nice to talk to you. It was a little more
hurried.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gwen hurried off the phone at 2:08 p.m. and at 4:45 p.m. neighbors called in reporting a fire at her house. So we know that her murder had to have occurred in this window. But that's a pretty big window, so we need to try and narrow that down to the most precise time possible. That's going to help us compare Scott and Tim's alibis.
That's right. Nope, gonna go take a right.
Jeffrey Kendall was stuck in traffic that very afternoon in front of Gwen's house. He may be able to help us.
I just seen this gentleman walk across, went up the porch, didn't knock, just walked in the house.
You remember what time it was about?
Oh yeah, because I get off at 3:30, so it'd take me no more than 10 minutes. It must have been 3:40 to 3:45.
Jeffrey Kendall could be a key witness in this case, and if he saw Gwen's killer outside of her house at 3:40 p.m., that could really help us narrow down this time window.
I'm not sure if there's another gentleman up. There might have been somebody else out in the front. I'm not sure if he came out of the house or he was already in front of the house. I'm having a strong sense he was already in front of the house, and there was.
If you don't remember, then
yeah.
Don't guess.
No, I'm not. But yeah, I think they were both standing there. But the second person, I have no vague of what he looked like or whatever. I believe there was a truck in there. Yeah, a Ford.
Jeffrey Kendall's heart's in the right place, and I think he wants to help. But when you look at his initial statement, and then you look at the following interviews, and there's little things added because he's watched the news footage or gone back by the house. And now it seems like he's confused and he can't speak to actually what he saw that day. He's not as good of a witness now than he was back then.
All he's good for is the time.
The 3:30 is.
That's all we wanted him to say today was 3:30. Then he came out with all that other stuff.
I'd never heard that until today.
You can't pick and choose what you like and what you don't like from a witness. There's about one a case that tries to get too helpful. Yep. And then they do, and then you're done. Because everything he just said is impeachable cross-examination, so there's no point. He's toast. Our two suspects in the 2007 murder of Gwen Bewley are her neighbors, Tim and Scott Shalene.
Hey, Miss Arthur, how you doing? I'm Alan Brown. We're just kind of going back over everything and making a push to try to clear it.
Good.
In order for us to get a better understanding of Gwen's true relationship with those brothers, we're going to talk to one of her closest friends, Pat Arthur.
Describe Gwen for us.
Oh, God. She trusted everybody. This is what this irritated me that she got with these guys next door to her, because she let him go and help her with finances because she said they were, the people that work with money management. Like,
when you say that they dealt in financial things, management or whatever, like an actual professional,
well, that's what it sounded like she thought.
Do you think it was both the guys next door, or do you think it was just the one guy?
One was only living there by himself for a while, but I think the other one came into play somewhere along the way.
Okay, when he was living there by himself, did she ever talk about him managing her money?
I don't think so.
She's saying up until Tim came to town, she wasn't even talking about Scott.
Absolutely, yeah.
She had gotten that computer, and he was using it. He was supposed to show her how to use it, because she didn't really know how to use a computer.
And did that ever happen that you know of?
Not that I know of. I don't know if she ever got that computer back after they had it.
That computer Pat mentioned has got to be the same computer that Tim had in Gwen's rental car when he was arrested, and the police seized it. The strange thing about that is, shortly after Tim's arrest, Scott Shalene started calling the police, claiming it was his computer.
Officer Shepard? Yes, sir. Scott Shalene again. What's up? I had some of my personal belongings in that car. What is it? I had a laptop. Well, right now we're inventorying everything. Do you have the receipt for the laptop? No, I don't. How much did you pay for it? I don't remember. Okay, well, go ahead and look for the receipt. If you bring it up, we'll release it to you tonight. That's not a problem. I just don't want it lost.
That's the computer Scott said was his, but it's really going to be Gwen.
But we never gave it to him. The question here is, why is Scott claiming that's his computer, and why is he so desperate to get it back?
We're going to need much stronger evidence to prove if Tim or Scott were involved with Gwen's murder. It's time to take a deeper look on where they were on the day she was killed. Scott has always maintained that he had an appointment at the VA at around 2:30 and then took the bus home where he was for a short time before he started smelling smoke. Tim claimed after having lunch with Gwen, he left for a new job in Michigan at 12:45.
At the DA's office, we worked with a guy named Eric Devlin, who's also a part of our team, who's now a computer forensic specialist. He is a geek tech freak.
What's exciting is that since this crime has happened so recently, we can use cell phone records to analyze Tim and Scott's movements. We brought in Eric Devlin, a digital forensics expert, to see if they're telling the truth.
Now, a cell phone is constantly letting the towers know, here's where I am, here's where I am. That's what's called pinging it. Every time that you request data, that's where you get the tower locations of where you are, the longitude and latitude. On August 29, 2007, Tim Sheline's cell phone makes a call at 1:43 p.m. That is in the general vicinity of Miss Bewley's home.
In his words, he was on his way to Michigan or in Michigan.
At that time.
At that time. Because he said he left at 12:45. And that's what?
1:43.
1:43, so that's an hour after he's claiming he left.
Tim did not leave for Michigan when he said he did, so he's either confused or he's lying. But then again, at 1:43 p.m., we do know that Gwen was still alive.
At 2:33, Tim Sheline receives a cell phone call from Scott Sheline's cell phone number. And again, Tim's phone is within a mile and a half of Gwen Bewley's home.
So Scott's calling Tim at 2:33.
Correct.
We can say for sure that they are not together because Tim's phone is hitting...
Right. That's the point.
...from the house 16 miles away. Scott's phone is making a call or receiving a call from Tim's phone.
We have two important things happening with this 2:33 phone call between Scott and Tim. First, it shows that Tim is still not on his way to Michigan. And second, Scott is near the VA building where he says he was. And we know at this point that Gwen had hurried off her phone for some unknown reason.
Then you actually have a fairly large gap.
There's two other calls, but they don't hit a tower.
Right. Tim Sheline's phone does not pick up the call. It goes to voicemail or hung up before voicemail. That's why I did not get a cell tower.
We have a whole hour in there. Tim is not picking up the phone. A whole hour from 2:56 to 3:52.
But he's making a ton of calls before. At the time of the fire, nothing's going on.
God, that matches perfectly. It's not just the answered calls that tell a story. It's also the unanswered calls. Because what's going on in the world of your suspect when he's not answering his phone?
Correct. Next call was a call that was made from Tim Sheline's phone number at 4:05 p.m.
Now, what's the distance from the house?
About 3 miles.
Everything's hitting the tower at the house. Now, at 4:05, he's 3 miles away, and people are smelling smoke.
A cell tower is an eyewitness. It's on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So you can see that cell phone in Tim Sheline's pocket never left Ohio. So why was Tim Sheline lying and saying he was in Michigan? And what was he doing there so close to her house during all this time when he said he left at 12:45? Now that we know Tim lied about his alibi the day of Gwen's murder, it's time for us to figure out more about him. We know that Tim was caught using Gwen's credit cards after her death. He went to jail for that. But it's important for us to know whether or not Tim was taking advantage of Gwen before her death as well. So we pulled up Gwen and Tim's financial records.
3/11/30, Tim Sheline. That's Tim's, that's that prepaid credit card.
1 month before Gwen's murder, Tim loaded $311.30 on his prepaid credit card. On that very same day, Gwen's credit card was charged for that same amount. This clearly shows us that Tim was not only stealing Gwen's money after her death, but also before. That is a huge piece of this puzzle.
On 8/8, it's refunded back.
And she's onto it.
So not only do we know that Tim was stealing, more importantly, Gwen became aware of it and protested the fraudulent charge a week and a half later, causing the money to be credited to her account. How can we prove that Tim knew Gwen was protesting?
So he transferred the money, then all of a sudden it's gone. What happened to it? He knows that she knows something funky's happening with her credit cards.
You can't sit up in front of a jury and argue, well, we all know that's what he did. If Tim was stealing Gwen's money and she found out about that and protested it, there's his motive. But if he wasn't aware of her protesting the charges, we can't establish that he had a motive to want to kill her. Well, if 660 still existed, we could get it all.
They don't.
So how do we get it in? If we can't put a custodian of the records on the stand to justify the paperwork, the papers themselves are hearsay. So not only do we have to find evidence that Tim knew he was caught, but it has to be evidence that a witness can testify to in order for it to be admissible in the courtroom. So we have a problem. We have to prove that Tim knew the world was crumbling.
How are you going to prove it?
I'm trying to figure out how we're going to prove it. Gwen's laptop, which Tim used to help her with her financial records and which was seized by the police, might be the answer. Get the computer, because that could be the key to the whole thing. When it was initially searched, nothing pertinent was found. But we're keeping our fingers crossed that because Eric Devlin has this brand new imaging technology, we're going to be able to uncover that link that can prove what could have been Tim's motivation.
It's all yours.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, how are you?
I need to talk to you for a second. Is that okay?
That's fine.
I appreciate it.
While Eric is working on the laptop, we need to talk to Scott Chalene. It's just suspicious that he was only 20 feet away while Gwen's house was burning down and he did nothing. Add to that the fact that he was so persistent in wanting to get that laptop back out of the police custody, and it just makes you think that there's something wrong.
Before you came back home, what did you do that day?
Had a VA appointment, then came back.
So you had been home for how long prior to the fire?
I drank like half a beer when I started smelling it. And then somebody came to my door and said, hey, there's a fire next door.
I remember that weekend when I checked on you and I talked to you that you felt somewhat responsible for her death.
Well, I felt because I smelled the smoke.
Okay.
And that's where I felt guilty.
Up until the fire, you didn't know Gwen was dead?
No.
Okay. This is where you need to be honest, and this is where you need to be truthful, Scott, okay? Remember I seized the laptop that night when we arrested him? Was that your computer, or was it?
That was his computer.
Okay, so that was not yours?
No.
Okay. That computer that was Tim's was actually Gwen's?
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know that before,
No.
Scott?
No.
Okay. And then you get to the credit cards.
So that's what I understand, why she would give more than one.
And you had to have asked your brother at some point in the last 7 years, why did you have her credit cards, and what did he tell you?
I didn't charge that much on it.
That's what he said. I didn't charge that much on him. But why did he have them in the first place?
She didn't answer that question.
Scott actually seems very believable, and he also seems truly surprised that that laptop was not his brother's. But until Eric is completely done processing that laptop and we know what all is on it, we can't cross him off the board.
Hi, this is Detective Harrington from Fairview Park Police Department. How are you?
Good. We know that Tim Chalene was stealing from Gwen before and after her death, but it's still a big leap to go from con man to killer. We need to talk to some of the women in Tim's life so we can have a better understanding of what kind of man he is and what he's all about.
What was your relationship with Tim?
Working relationship. He took pictures and stuff for like glamour shots, and then I did the makeup and stuff. It just got really, really bizarre.
What did you mean, like, that the relationship was bizarre?
Like in the phone calls, he was telling me that he loved me, wanted to be more than friends. I mean, he told me he was going to kill me and my kids.
If you didn't date him, then he threatened to kill you.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever go out?
Yeah.
Yeah? How many times?
After 2 or 3 times, I just didn't have a good feeling. So then he wasn't really nice about me telling him I wasn't interested.
Was he belligerent?
Belligerent, yes. He got nasty.
He got nasty.
Something's wrong with him. He's nuts. He's not who he says he is.
He is the most manipulating person I've ever met in my life. Scared the daylights out of me.
Can you give us some examples?
I mean, this one particular time, I just had enough, and he threw me to the floor, and he ended up biting my arm, and I was screaming and got him off of me, called the police, and he went to jail, and there he was knocking on my door the next day. That's the way he was. He was a stalker. He said it's like the devil gets a hold of you, and he's smarter and wiser than you, and you can't win.
This case went from being a puzzle and a cold case as a challenge to very, very scary. And this might be the worst guy that we've chased. Seriously.
Hi, this is Detective Harrington.
Hey, folks, I don't mean to interrupt, but I managed to finish the computer and actually found something you may want to see.
The evidence is mounting against Tim Chalene for the murder of 67-year-old Gwen Bewley. But our case still hinges on finding evidence that proves that he was aware of the fact that Gwen had caught him stealing. So we're not looking for computer records that say, I'm planning on killing Gwen. We just want him looking at 660 rewards before the murder, and then everything is nice and pretty and you can make it work.
Verification records more than anything. Exactly.
We've talked to all the witnesses. We've examined all the evidence. Our last hope is that laptop computer, and Eric Devlin says that he might have found something. Hi, Sunshine.
Good morning.
We hope you're tired.
I am very tired.
Excellent.
I managed to finish the computer this morning about 3:30.
Oh, wow.
So they actually extracted the hard drive from the computer, created a good forensic image. It's exactly what you're going to want when you actually bring it into court.
We have got to find information on this computer to show that Tim Shalene was aware Gwen Bewley protested his charges, because that would threaten to send him back to prison.
What I was able to find was that on August 16th, this computer accesses the Reward 660 site, and not just the site, it actually accesses a member site. Basically, you had to use a username and login that comes back to Tim's accounts. And 12 more times he checks on this computer this account.
So you got it before her murder, and it's in his possession.
We know that on August 8th, Gwen protested a charge on her credit card, and it's the same amount that had previously funded Tim Shalene's Reward 660 account. Now we can show that Tim Shalene knew about that protest because he logged on to that 660 account several times, including the morning of Gwen's murder, with his own password and email account on Gwen's computer, which was recovered from his car the day he was arrested 7 years ago. Oh, it's so sweet how things work out.
He's checking all right around coming up to the time of the murder.
Then he goes over to her house and has a friendly lunch. Mm-hmm. That's good.
That I somehow don't think was so friendly by the time it was all said and done.
Rebuilding the web pages is one of the most difficult things. It's advantage of literally the latest bit of technology. I can tell you that the stuff I was able to find isn't anything that their experts would have been able to find at the time they examined this computer. The software program I used, this version was actually released less than a month ago.
A month-old technology allows us to say for sure that Reward 660 happened. And you'll come back and testify for these guys if they go to trial.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to do it all the time.
Perfect. Perfect. You're worth a penny. Tim's world was crumbling around him, and now not only do we have the evidence to prove it, we have somebody who can testify to it. Yay, well, I'm glad you're a nerd, man. Thank you so much. With all the information we have that points to Tim Shalene, it's time for us to figure out what to do with his brother, Scott. What are your feelings about Scott Shalene, Paul?
I don't believe Scott had anything to do with her homicide or the fire.
And his reactions to the fire and her death is not one of a guilty guy at all.
You felt somewhat responsible for her death.
Well, I felt because I smelled the smoke.
Okay.
And that's where I felt guilty.
Scott was Gwen's neighbor for 4 years and never had any issues or problems with her until his brother showed up. The cell phone records confirm Scott's alibi and show us that he was miles away from Tim at the time of the murder. After talking to Scott, his story is still the same, and he seems to be truly upset about what happened to Gwen. Taking all that into consideration, we are very confident that Scott Shalene had nothing to do with Gwen Bewley's murder. I think that you're not just taking him off the board, you're not just checking off a to-do for your prosecutor, you're making him a key witness against his own brother. And he's going to be a good witness. Now that Scott Shalene has been cleared after all these years, it is time to confront Tim Shalene. This is it. I mean, this is the whole part of the plan you've been waiting for. Tim is still on parole for being convicted of being in possession of Gwen's rental car and also being in possession of her credit cards. He has a meeting with his parole officer today, so Paul has arranged that he be held at the office, and we're going to go down there to approach him.
Once he's off probation or parole, he can go anywhere in the country he wants. He has nothing to bind him.
Yep.
So this is why time really is of the essence. Yes. He hasn't shown up yet.
What? Paul just got a call. Tim has not shown up for his appointment. Think he's left town?
If he didn't show up there, he's gone.
We're on our way to surprise Tim Shalene at his meeting with his parole officer. The problem is he hasn't shown up for the meeting.
Yes, sir? He's in the lobby now. I'm on my way up there. All right, thank you. You're gonna talk to him? She definitely wants to talk to me. All right, let's go. Tim?
There's a lot of questions you could answer.
No, you're trying to get me to incriminate myself with something I didn't do.
I'm trying to get you to answer our questions.
You know something? I can't do it. Why don't you refocus on her daughters? Her greedy daughters that wanted her money.
That's who you think did it?
Yes.
That's a mean man. He's got the coldest, meanest looking blue eyes I've seen on a person in a long, long time. He might not be real big, but he's a really scary man. We can't force him to talk to us, but that's okay because cold cases aren't usually solved by confessions. It's always all the little pieces and inconsistencies like the ones we've learned about this week. How do you feel about your case now?
Question that they've always asked us every time we try and take this to them is there anything new? Well, now we do have things that are new.
We were able to show beyond a reasonable doubt that Gwen was murdered and this fire was an act of arson.
She was dead before the fire of unnatural causes, then the fire covering up the homicide.
By using cell phone records, we were able to show that Tim lied about his whereabouts on the day of the murder.
States that he is in Michigan. Tim's phone is within a mile and a half of Gwen Bewley's home.
And Tim was not answering his phone during the window of time that we believe Gwen was murdered. We have a whole hour in there. Tim is not picking up the phone. Add that to Tim's crazy history of violence toward women.
It's like the devil gets a hold of you, you can't win.
You got nasty.
He got nasty.
If you didn't date him, then he threatened to kill you.
Yeah.
This guy is not going to leave women alone. And lastly, with the use of state-of-the-art computer forensics, we were able to show that Tim knew Gwen caught him stealing her money.
August 16th is the first time he checks on this computer, this account.
Then he goes over to her house and has a friendly lunch. You can see every bit of this story laid out before your eyes.
You're there.
Are you ready to take it to your prosecutor?
He's ready.
All right, let's go. Okay. We'll let y'all know as soon as we hear. Keep your fingers crossed.
Kelly and Paul are presenting the case to the county prosecutor, and as always, anticipation is killing us. All of the hard work put into this case over all these years is finally coming to this moment.
All right. All right. Tommy, you got it.
You got it?
We got it. All right. Thank you. After 7 years, they've agreed to take it to the grand jury, and I'm very happy about that. We put a great deal of effort in, and now we have reached the goal. That's a really good feeling for me.
He summarized it, and the DA was very impressed. Paul has never presented a murder case to a prosecutor before, and he did his presentation like an old pro. I'm so proud of Paul.
Really helped us organize, brought up new information, stuff we didn't have before, so really there were no holes.
Let us know if you need anything else. All right, Kelly, time. And we're going to go tell Sue the good news.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Good. We're doing that.
She'll be so excited.
Okay.
It is so incredible to be able to tell Gwen's daughters this news. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
You too. Thank you. Okay.
How are you?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
After 7 long years, they're finally going to have answers as to who's responsible for the murder of their mother. Well, we are very excited to tell you that after all these years, the county prosecutor is going to present a case against Tim Shalane for the murder of your mother. It's a good day, it's a good case, and you should love Paul Shepard and Tom Harrington.
It's taken 7 years, and I'm grateful that Kelly and Yolanda have gotten us where we are now. I really hope that my mom knows we didn't give up until we got to this point.
My mother didn't deserve to die like that, and she needs justice. We need closure, and I want this man put away. Thank you for taking my mother's case.
It was an honor to work for y'all and to get somewhere with your case.
I knew in my heart that there would be justice at some point. It's just a good feeling to move forward.
to go meet you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. We'll call Paul. He's waiting to talk to you.
Yes.
I'm so glad you came so we could give you good news in person. Gwen Bewley was the kind of lady that was the life of the party, the one everybody wanted to hang with. You
Mẹ ơi, mẹ có số con rể về mà điện bảo nó chủ nhật có về đấy, bố trí mà về. Con rể về. Bà điện cho con rể về ấy. Thì bảo nó câu, thì bảo cái hàng không bảo nó thì thôi. Nhé. Ấn 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1 cũng được, 4 cũng được, 1 cũng được. Nó đẩy một số đi. Nhưng mà không có 1 thì đẩy không được. Cũng mặc định là có 1. Vậy anh không ấn 1 mà. Thì nó chưa đủ. Nó phải đủ xong rồi số thì em mình đi ăn những 15 phút. Lúc mở ngày đi. Vậy. 25 nhân trừ đi 23. Mà để 23 là to lắm rồi đấy. Còn phải nhanh 1 tháng rồi tiến.